The slap echoed through the empty executive floor like a gunshot. Adrian Cole, 32 years old, worth $3 billion, untouchable, stood frozen with his hand still reaching toward her arm. The woman who'd just struck him across the face wasn't trembling, wasn't apologizing. Elena Brooks stared straight into his eyes with something he'd never seen directed at him before. Absolute refusal to be afraid. "Touch me again without permission," she said quietly, "and I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man runs this company." Then she turned and walked away, leaving the most powerful CEO in New York completely speechless. If you want to see how a single moment of courage can transform two broken lives, stay until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this reaches. Adrian Cole learned about power when he was 7 years old. His father, a ruthless investment banker who built empires and destroyed competitors before breakfast, sat him down in a leather chair that swallowed the boy whole and explained how the world actually worked. Not the fairy tale version teachers sold in schools. The real version. Money doesn't just buy things, Adrian. It buys people. Their time. Their loyalty. Their silence when you need it most. His father had poured himself scotch, even though it was 9 in the morning. Remember that, and you'll never lose anything that matters. 25 years later, Adrian couldn't remember a single time that advice had failed him. He stood now in his corner office on the 47th floor of Cole Technologies, looking down at Manhattan like a kingdom he'd conquered through intelligence, ruthlessness, and the kind of wealth that made problems disappear. The company his father started as a small software firm now dominated cloud infrastructure across North America. 12,000 employees, partnerships with governments, a valuation that made investors salivate, and Adrian controlled every piece of it. At 32, he'd already lived more than most men experienced in a lifetime, built an empire, married the woman everyone said was perfect for him, had a son, lost his wife to a car accident that still felt unreal 4 years later. After Sarah died, something in Adrian just turned off. Not grief. He'd processed that with the help of expensive therapists and even more expensive bottles of wine. What died was his ability to care about things that didn't directly benefit him or his son. Relationships became transactions. Women became temporary. Emotions became inconveniences he scheduled around board meetings. His executive team learned quickly not to challenge him. His competitors learned to fear him. And the endless rotation of women who moved through his life learned that Adrian Cole didn't do commitment. He did arrangements. Everyone had their role. Everyone stayed in their lane. Until Elena Brooks walked into his office on a Tuesday morning in October and looked at him like he was just another man. Adrian first saw her in the reception area outside his office. His previous executive assistant, Michelle, or maybe it was Monica, had quit 3 weeks ago after he'd made an offhand comment about her perfume being distracting during a client meeting. Human Resources claimed she'd pursued other opportunities, but Adrian knew she'd left because he was exhausting to work for. He didn't care. Assistants were replaceable. Mr. Cole, his director of HR, Patricia Summers, knocked on his open door. "Your new assistant is here for orientation." Adrian didn't look up from his laptop. "Send her in." "I thought you might want to—" "Patricia, send her in." The woman who entered his office 30 seconds later wasn't what he expected. Most people who made it to the executive floor of Cole Technologies carried themselves with carefully constructed confidence. Expensive suits, practiced smiles, that specific polish that came from understanding how power worked. They looked at Adrian with a mixture of respect and fear that he'd come to expect. Elena Brooks looked tired. She wore a gray blazer that had been professionally cleaned but showed wear at the cuffs. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry except small silver earrings, minimal makeup. She carried a leather portfolio that had seen better years and stood in front of his desk with straight shoulders and steady eye contact. But it was her expression that caught him. She wasn't performing, wasn't trying to impress him. She looked at Adrian the way someone looks at a job they need but don't particularly want. Necessary, complicated, probably annoying. "Elena Brooks," she said, extending her hand. Her voice was clear, professional, completely unremarkable. "I'm your new executive assistant." Adrian stood and shook her hand. Her grip was firm, brief, transactional. "Adrian Cole." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Let's talk about expectations. She sat, crossing her ankles, spine straight, waiting. I assume Patricia explained the role, Adrian said, settling back into his chair. But let me be direct about what I actually need. I work 14-hour days minimum. I travel twice a month. I expect my schedule managed flawlessly, my meetings prepared in advance, and problems solved before they reach my desk. Elena nodded once. Understood. I don't do sympathy for personal issues. If your car breaks down or you're sick, I need coverage arranged immediately. This job pays extremely well specifically because it demands everything. I saw the salary. Her tone didn't change. That's why I'm here. Adrian leaned forward slightly. Most new assistants at this point started asking questions designed to show enthusiasm, intelligence, dedication. Elena just sat there, politely waiting for him to finish. You have experience? He asked. 5 years as an executive assistant, 2 years before that in administrative coordination. She didn't elaborate. Why leave your last position? The company downsized. My department was eliminated. References? In my file. Patricia verified everything. Adrian studied her for a long moment. She didn't fidget, didn't fill the silence with nervous chatter, just met his eyes calmly and waited. It was oddly refreshing. All right, he said finally. You start tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll expect coffee, black, no sugar, and the day's briefing materials on my desk by the time I arrive at 7:15. I'll be here at 6:30, Elena said, standing. Is there anything else? Adrian almost smiled. Almost. No, Patricia will handle the rest of orientation. Elena nodded once, professionally, and headed toward the door. Ms. Brooks? She paused, turning back. Welcome to Cole Technologies. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Then she was gone, and Adrian found himself staring at the space where she'd stood, feeling something he couldn't quite identify. Curiosity, maybe. He ignored it and went back to work. Mark. Elena started the next morning exactly as promised. When Adrian arrived at 7:12, his coffee sat steaming on his desk next to a perfectly organized folder containing his schedule, meeting briefs, and flagged emails requiring immediate attention. Elena was already at her desk in the outer office, typing efficiently, headset on. Good morning, Mr. Cole, she said without looking up. Your 8 o'clock with the CFO has been moved to 8:30. He requested the change an hour ago. I've adjusted the rest of your morning accordingly. Adrian picked up the coffee. It was perfect. Thank you. You're welcome. That became the pattern. Elena was exceptional at her job, frighteningly efficient. She anticipated his needs before he articulated them, managed his impossible schedule without complaint, and handled the endless stream of requests, demands, and minor crises with calm professionalism. But she never went beyond professional. She didn't laugh at his jokes, didn't bring him personal details about her life, didn't ask about his son or comment on photos in his office. When other executives tried to chat with her, she was polite but brief, always redirecting conversations back to work. Adrian found it fascinating. By the end of her first week, he realized he knew almost nothing about her beyond what appeared in her personnel file. 30 years old, single, no children, address in Brooklyn, emergency contact listed as her mother. That was it. Everyone else who worked this closely with him eventually revealed themselves. They wanted to be known, to be liked, to build rapport with the CEO. They treated proximity to power like an opportunity. Elena treated it like a job. And perversely, that made Adrian want to know more. Dutik, the shift started small. Working late tonight? Adrian asked one Thursday evening as he prepared to leave. It was nearly 8 p.m. Elena looked up from her computer. Just finishing expense reports. I'll be done in 20 minutes. You don't have to stay late on my account. I'm not. I'm staying late because these are due tomorrow. She returned her attention to the screen. Adrian lingered by her desk. Do you always work this hard? When the job requires it. She clicked something, frowned, made a correction. Elena. She looked up again, and for the first time he saw a flicker of something in her expression. Not irritation exactly, more like patience wearing thin. Is there something you need, Mr. Cole? I'm just trying to have a conversation. We have conversations all day about work. She saved her document. Was there something else work-related you wanted to discuss? Adrian smiled. No, just making conversation. I appreciate that, but I'd like to finish these reports and get home. She glanced at the clock on her screen. My train leaves in 45 minutes. He should have left it there. Instead, he leaned against her desk. Where in Brooklyn? Elena's hand stilled on her keyboard. When she looked at him this time, her expression had shifted into something carefully neutral. Mr. Cole, I prefer to keep my personal life separate from work. I'm just asking where you live. It's not exactly classified information. Sunset Park. She said it flatly, like providing information to end a conversation. Now, if you'll excuse me, that's quite a commute. Have you considered moving closer? The silence stretched for 3 seconds. No, Elena said quietly. I haven't. Is there anything else? Something in her tone finally penetrated. Adrian straightened. No, have a good night. You too. He left, but the interaction bothered him all the way home. Not because she'd been rude, she hadn't been, but she'd drawn a line so clearly, so firmly, that it felt like a door closing, and Adrian Cole wasn't used to doors closing in his face. Over the following weeks, he tested that line. Small things. Compliments about her efficiency. Questions about her weekend. Observations about her coffee order when she made Starbucks runs for the team. Elena deflected every single one. Your efficiency is impressive, Ms. Brooks. Thank you. I'll have the Henderson contracts ready by 2. Any plans this weekend? Nothing exciting. The Jenkins proposal needs those revisions Monday morning, correct? You always get the same coffee. Vanilla latte, extra hot. The barista remembers my order. Speaking of Monday, did you want to review the quarterly reports before or after your 10 a.m.? It was masterful, really. She never refused to answer directly, never seemed uncomfortable, just smoothly, professionally redirected every personal topic back to work. And it was driving Adrian insane. He'd built a career on reading people, understanding their motivations, finding leverage. Elena gave him nothing. She arrived exactly on time, performed flawlessly, and left precisely when her work was complete. She had no interest in his money, his status, or his attention. For a man who'd spent years having women pursue him, it was completely disorienting. You're obsessing, his best friend Marcus told him over drinks one Friday evening. Marcus ran a competing tech firm and had known Adrian since business school. Just let it go. I'm not obsessing, I'm curious. You've spent 20 minutes talking about your assistant's coffee order. That's not curiosity, that's fixation. Marcus grinned. When was the last time any woman turned you down? She hasn't turned me down. It's not like that. But you want it to be. Adrian took a long drink. She's interesting. She's unavailable. Emotionally, professionally, every way that matters. Marcus signaled for another round. Which is exactly why you want her. That's not... Adrian, I've known you for 15 years. You always want what you can't have. It's your defining characteristic. That bothered Adrian more than he wanted to admit. Because Marcus wasn't entirely wrong. Kiss. The breaking point came 3 weeks into Elena's employment. Adrian had a particularly brutal day. A major client threatened to walk over a billing dispute. His CTO announced his resignation, effective immediately. And a Wall Street Journal reporter started asking uncomfortable questions about the company's diversity hiring practices. By 7 p.m., Adrian was exhausted, angry, and looking for any kind of release from the pressure. Elena was still at her desk, organizing files. You're still here, Adrian said, loosening his tie as he emerged from his office. Last-minute preparations for tomorrow's board meeting. She didn't look up. Leave it. The board can wait. I'd rather finish. Adrian walked over to her desk, picked up the folder she was assembling, and set it aside. I'm telling you to leave it. Elena's hand stilled. She looked up at him slowly, and there was something new in her eyes, something sharp. Mr. Cole, let's get a drink, Adrian said. The words came out more command than invitation. There's a bar 2 blocks from here. 1 drink, my treat. No, thank you. Elena, I said no. She reached for the folder. Adrian didn't move it. 1 drink. We've been working together for weeks. I'm just trying to be friendly. I don't want to be friendly. I want to finish my work and go home. Her voice had cooled several degrees. Please move. Adrian didn't move. He wasn't sure what he was doing. Later, he'd recognize it as the exact kind of entitled behavior his father had modeled, pushing, assuming, taking up space until people gave him what he wanted. In the moment, he just felt frustrated. Why are you like this? He asked. Elena stood up slowly. Like what? Cold, distant. I'm trying to You're trying to what? Her eyes flashed. Get to know me? Build rapport? Or are you trying to do what powerful men always try to do when women work for them? Adrian felt something shift in his chest. That's not... I need this job, Mr. Cole. Elena's voice was perfectly level, but something underneath it was lethal. I need it because I have rent to pay and medical bills to cover and responsibilities you wouldn't understand. So I come in early, I work hard, and I don't give you or anyone else in this building a single reason to question my professionalism. I'm not questioning, you're standing in front of my desk, blocking my work, pressuring me to have drinks after I've already said no. What exactly would you call that? Adrian stepped back like she'd slapped him. I'm going to finish these files, Elena said quietly. Then I'm going to catch my train. And tomorrow morning, we're going to pretend this conversation never happened. Are we clear? He should have apologized, should have recognized the line he'd crossed. Instead, wounded pride made him cold. Crystal clear, Miss Brooks. Finish your work. He walked back into his office, grabbed his briefcase, and left without another word. Imakis. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the conversation, hearing the controlled anger in Elena's voice, seeing the way she'd looked at him. Not with fear, with disappointment, like he was exactly what she'd expected. The next morning, he arrived at the office at 6:45, earlier than usual. Elena was already there, organizing materials for the board meeting with mechanical efficiency. Good morning, Mr. Cole, she said without looking up. Your coffee and briefing materials are ready. Her voice was perfectly professional, perfectly empty. Elena, the board meeting starts at 8. I've prepared backup copies of all presentation materials in case of technical issues. Mr. Patterson from Finance requested a 5-minute pre-meeting, which I've scheduled for 7:50. I want to apologize for last night. Her hands paused just for a second before continuing to arrange papers. That's not necessary, Mr. Cole. Yes, it is. I was out of line. You were right. I pushed when you'd already said no. It was inappropriate. Elena set down the papers and finally looked at him. Her expression was carefully neutral. I appreciate that, she said quietly. Can we move forward now? Of course. Good. Your 7:30 is in conference room B. She turned back to her work, and Adrian understood that the apology, while necessary, hadn't actually changed anything. The wall between them was still there, higher now, maybe. He grabbed his coffee and headed to the conference room, feeling like he'd lost something he'd never actually had. Sucked. The pattern reset to professional efficiency. For 2 weeks, Adrian kept every interaction purely about work. Elena responded with the same calm competence she'd shown since day one. The tension from that evening faded into background noise, but Adrian couldn't stop noticing things, like how Elena ate lunch at her desk every single day. Never went out with other assistants, never ordered delivery, just brought something from home in a plain plastic container. Or how her blazer, while clean and professional, was the same one she rotated through the week. 2 blazers total, actually, gray and navy, both worn at the seams. Or how she disappeared into the bathroom every day at 11:30 for exactly 3 minutes, returning with her face slightly flushed, like she'd been crying or fighting off exhaustion. Adrian told himself these observations meant nothing, but he started leaving the door to his office open more often, just to overhear fragments of her phone calls. Mom, I told you, the appointment is next Thursday. I already requested time off. Pause. No, you can't skip it again. The doctor said... Longer pause. I know it's expensive. I'm handling it. Another day. I sent the rent check yesterday. It'll clear by Friday. Silence. I'm aware we're cutting it close. I'm working on it. And once, late in the afternoon, I can't afford that right now. We'll figure something else out. Elena never elaborated, never complained, just handled whatever crisis existed on the other end of those calls and returned to work like nothing had happened. It was the most privacy Adrian had ever given anyone working for him. He hated how much he wanted to ask, wanted to help, wanted to do something. But he'd lost that right the moment he'd pushed her boundary. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Friday in November. Adrian had scheduled a late meeting with investors that ran until 7:30. When he finally emerged from the conference room, exhausted and ready to go home to his son, he found Elena still at her desk. The outer office was empty. Everyone else had left hours ago. Elena sat in the dim glow of her desk lamp, staring at her computer screen with an expression that made Adrian stop in the doorway. She looked devastated. "Elena?" She jerked slightly like she'd forgotten anyone else existed. Then her professional mask slammed back into place. "Mr. Cole, how was the investor meeting?" "Fine. What are you still doing here?" "Just finishing up some emails?" But her voice was thin, stretched. Adrian walked closer. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Elena, I'm fine," she repeated, more firmly. "I'll lock up when I leave." Adrian should have respected that boundary, should have said goodnight and left. Instead, he walked around her desk and saw what was on her computer screen: medical billing statements, overdue notices, collections warnings. Elena closed the browser window so fast she knocked over her coffee cup. Cold coffee splashed across her desk, soaking papers, dripping onto the floor. "Damn it," she whispered, then louder, angrier. "Damn it!" She grabbed tissues, trying to blot the mess, but her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't hold them steady. "Elena, stop! I have to clean this up. Stop!" Adrian grabbed paper towels from the break room, helped clean the worst of the spill. Elena stood frozen, arms wrapped around herself, watching like she couldn't quite process what was happening. When the desk was mostly clean, Adrian straightened and looked at her directly. "What's going on?" "Nothing. I'm sorry about the mess. I'll replace any damaged documents. I don't care about the documents. I'm asking about you." Elena's laugh was bitter, broken. "Why? Why do you care?" "Because you're standing in an empty office at 8 p.m. looking like your world is ending. So yes, I care." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then something inside her seemed to crack. "My mother has cancer," Elena said quietly. "Stage 3. She needs treatment that insurance won't cover. I've been working extra hours taking on freelance projects at night, but it's not enough. It's never enough." Adrian felt something twist in his chest. "The bills you were looking at." "Collections. I'm 3 months behind on her treatment center payments. They're threatening to drop her as a patient." Elena's voice was remarkably steady given what she was saying. "So I'm trying to figure out which bill I can delay to keep her in treatment, rent or utilities or my own medical insurance. That's the math I'm doing." "How much do you need?" Elena's eyes flashed. "I'm not asking you for money." "I didn't say you were. I'm offering—" "No." The word was absolute. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Cole, but I don't take charity, especially not from my employer." "It wouldn't be charity. Consider it a loan." "No." Elena stepped back, putting distance between them. "I've spent my entire life taking care of myself and my mother. I'm not going to start owing people now, especially not people who have power over my employment." Adrian recognized the wall going back up. "Elena?" "Call by. I need to leave." She grabbed her bag, shoved papers into it mechanically. "I'm sorry about tonight. It won't happen again." "You have nothing to apologize for." "I'll see you Monday, Mr. Cole." She walked toward the elevator, and Adrian knew he should let her go. Instead, he followed. "Let me give you a ride home at least. It's late." "I'm taking the train." "Elena, it's after 8 on a Friday. Let me—" I said no. They reached the elevator. Elena pressed the button repeatedly, like she could summon it faster. "Please," Adrian said quietly. "Just let me do this one thing." The elevator arrived. Elena stepped inside, then turned to face him. "You want to help, Mr. Cole? Stop pushing. Stop offering things I can't accept. Just let me work and go home and handle my own life." "I'm trying to—" "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to fix a problem because that's what powerful people do. But I'm not a problem to fix. I'm a person trying to survive." The elevator doors started to close. Adrian did something stupid. He reached out and grabbed her arm, stopping the doors. "Don't walk away like this." Elena looked down at his hand on her arm. When she looked back up, her eyes were cold. Let go. I just want to help. The slap came so fast, Adrian didn't see it coming. The crack echoed through the empty lobby. Adrian stumbled backward, hand flying to his face, staring at Elena in complete shock. His cheek burned. His ears rang. Elena stood in the elevator, breathing hard, her hand still raised. I told you to let go, she said, her voice shaking but firm. I told you no, multiple times, and you grabbed me anyway. Adrian couldn't speak, couldn't process what had just happened. You want to help me, Mr. Cole? Elena's eyes were blazing now. Respect my boundaries. Treat me like a person instead of a project, and never, ever touch me without my permission again. The elevator doors closed. Adrian stood alone in the lobby, his face stinging, his mind completely blank. A cleaning crew member was staring at him from across the lobby. Adrian turned and walked back to his office on autopilot, closed the door, and sat down at his desk. Then he put his head in his hands and started laughing. Not because it was funny, because for the first time in his entire adult life, someone had given him a real consequence, and he'd absolutely deserved it. Adrian didn't go home that night. He sat in his office until midnight, replaying every interaction he'd had with Elena, every boundary he'd pushed, every time she'd said no and he'd persisted anyway, framed as charm, persistence, interest, actually just entitlement, the same behavior he'd watched his father use, the same attitude that had poisoned his marriage before Sarah died, the assumption that if he wanted something, he deserved to have it. His phone buzzed, text from Marcus. Heard something interesting from building security. You okay? Adrian typed back. Got exactly what I deserved. Marcus. Want to talk about it? Adrian. No, I need to fix it. Marcus. Some things you can't fix. Adrian stared at that message for a long time. Then he opened his laptop and started writing. Check. The letter took him 4 hours and 7 drafts. When he finally finished, dawn was breaking over Manhattan. Adrian printed it, signed it by hand, and placed it in an envelope. Then he called his florist. Mr. Cole, it's 6 a.m, the woman answered, sounding understandably confused. I need a bouquet delivered to my office. Today. Before 9 a.m. What kind of... Something simple. Not roses. Nothing romantic. Just respectful. Can you do that? Pause. Yes, we can arrange something. Good. Deliver it to the executive floor. Attention, Elena Brooks. He hung up and looked at the envelope containing his letter. Then Adrian Cole did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed that it would be enough, and prepared himself for the very real possibility that it wouldn't be. Elena didn't sleep either. She sat on the subway heading back to Brooklyn, her hands still tingling from the impact, replaying the moment over and over. The look on Adrian Cole's face when she'd hit him. Pure shock, like nobody had ever told him no in a way he couldn't ignore. Good. But now, riding the train through the darkness, the adrenaline was wearing off and reality was setting in. She'd slapped her boss, the CEO of a $3 billion company, a man who could destroy her career with a single phone call. Elena pressed her forehead against the cold window and tried not to panic. She needed this job. The salary was the only thing keeping her mother in treatment, keeping their rent paid, keeping them barely above water. Without it, they'd drown in medical debt within weeks. And she'd just thrown it away because she couldn't control her temper. No, that wasn't fair. He'd grabbed her after she'd said no, multiple times. But would anyone believe that? Or would they just see a struggling assistant who'd assaulted her wealthy employer? Elena's phone buzzed. Text from her mother. How was work, honey? She typed back, fine, get some rest. Love you. Then she turned off her phone and stared out at the darkness rushing past. By the time she reached her apartment, a cramped one-bedroom she shared with her mother in Sunset Park, Elena had convinced herself she'd be fired by Monday morning. Maybe sooner. She unlocked the door quietly. Her mother was asleep on the couch, the TV playing softly. Maria Brooks looked smaller every time Elena saw her. The cancer had stolen 20 pounds she couldn't afford to lose, turned her skin gray, made her beautiful hair thin and brittle. Elena covered her with a blanket, turned off the TV, and went to her own room. Then she sat on her bed and let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. That was the rule. 5 minutes to fall apart. Then she had to get up and keep going. When the timer on her phone went off, Elena wiped her face, changed into pajamas, and started looking for new job listings, just in case. She arrived at the office Monday morning at 6:15 instead of her usual 6:30. If she was going to be fired, she wanted to clean out her desk before everyone else arrived, avoid the humiliation of being escorted out by security while her coworkers watched. But when the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, Elena froze. Sitting on her desk was an enormous bouquet of white lilies and blue hydrangeas. Simple, elegant, clearly expensive. And next to it, a cream-colored envelope with her name written in black ink. Elena's heart started pounding. She walked slowly to her desk, picked up the envelope with shaking hands, and opened it. The letter inside was handwritten, 2 pages. Adrian's distinctive script, slightly messy, clearly written in haste. Elena, I'm writing this at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep and I owe you an explanation, not an excuse. An explanation. You were absolutely right about everything you said Friday night. I pushed when you said no. I crossed boundaries you set clearly and repeatedly. I grabbed your arm after you told me to stop. And I did all of it because I'm used to getting what I want, when I want it, regardless of what anyone else needs. That's not charm. That's not persistence. That's abuse of power. My father taught me that money and position meant I could take up space in other people's lives, whether they wanted me there or not. For 32 years, I've believed him. I've treated relationships like transactions and people like obstacles to manage. You slapped me because I deserved it. Probably deserved it weeks earlier, honestly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to know that I understand what I did wrong, and it will never happen again. If you choose to resign, I'll provide an outstanding reference and 6 months severance pay. If you choose to stay, I promise you complete professional respect. No personal questions, no pressure, no touching, nothing but the job you do brilliantly. The choice is entirely yours. I'm sorry. Adrian Elena read it 3 times. Then she set it down carefully, walked to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on her face. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Exhausted, suspicious, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because men like Adrian Cole didn't apologize. They made excuses, they blamed, they twisted situations until somehow it was your fault for making them uncomfortable. But this letter didn't read like manipulation. It read like someone who'd actually thought about what he'd done. Elena dried her face, straightened her blazer, and walked back to her desk. She had 15 minutes before Adrian usually arrived. She spent them researching employment lawyers, just in case this was an elaborate setup. Command. Adrian walked in at exactly 7:12, carrying his usual coffee and leather briefcase. He stopped when he saw Elena at her desk. "Good morning," he said quietly. His voice was careful, formal. "I wasn't sure if you'd be here." Elena stood. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Did you get the flowers?" "I did. And the letter." Adrian nodded once. He looked terrible, actually, dark circles under his eyes. His tie slightly crooked, like he'd gotten as little sleep as she had. "I meant every word," he said. "I appreciate that." Elena kept her voice professional. "I'd like to discuss boundaries moving forward." Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Relief, maybe. "Of course, whatever you need. First, all interactions remain strictly professional, work topics only." "Agreed." "Second, no personal questions about my life, my family, or my circumstances outside this office." "Understood." "Third, no physical contact, no touching, no casual hand on the shoulder, nothing." Adrian flinched slightly but nodded. "Yes." "Fourth, if I say no to anything, a meeting, a project, a request, that answer is final. No pushing." "Absolutely." Elena took a breath. "And fifth, if you violate any of these boundaries, I will report it to HR and pursue legal action. No warnings, no second chances." "Fair," Adrian said simply. "Anything else?" "No, that's everything." Adrian set his briefcase down. "Then I agree to all your terms. Thank you for staying." He walked into his office and closed the door. Elena sat down at her desk and realized her hands were shaking. That was it. No argument, no negotiation, just complete agreement. She didn't know what to do with that, so she did what she always did. She opened her email and started working. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of Elena's professional life. Adrian kept every single promise. He stopped asking personal questions entirely. Their conversations consisted exclusively of project updates, scheduling conflicts, and client briefings. When they worked late, he ordered dinner for both of them without comment and ate in his office while she ate at her desk. No jokes, no attempts at rapport. Just professional efficiency. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow. Elena told herself that was ridiculous. She'd set boundaries, and he was respecting them. This was exactly what she'd asked for. But she couldn't stop noticing small things, like how Adrian had stopped flirting with everyone, not just her. The sales director who used to get special attention during meetings now received the same polite professionalism as everyone else. Or how he'd started actually listening in staff meetings instead of checking his phone, taking notes, asking thoughtful questions, or how he'd personally apologized to a junior developer he'd snapped at during a product review in front of the entire team. People around the office were whispering about it. What happened to Cole? Elena overheard 2 managers discussing in the break room. He's been almost decent lately. Maybe he's sick. Or having a midlife crisis. Elena said nothing and went back to her desk. Pause. The shift became obvious during a meeting with a major client. The client, a loud investment banker named Robert Chen, had a reputation for being handsy with female staff. Elena had dealt with men like him before, the kind who thought expensive suits gave them permission to touch. She was taking notes when Chen reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "You're doing great, sweetheart," he said with a patronizing smile. "Maybe you could grab us some more coffee?" Elena went very still. Before she could respond, Adrian's voice cut across the conference room like ice. "Mr. Chen, I need you to remove your hand from my assistant immediately." Chen laughed. "Relax, Cole, I'm just being friendly. You're touching an employee without her consent. Remove your hand, or this meeting is over." The room went silent. Chen's smile faded. "You're serious?" "Completely. We can discuss the contract after you apologize to Ms. Brooks." Elena watched Chen's face cycle through emotions: surprise, anger, calculation. Finally, he pulled his hand back. "Sorry," he muttered. "Didn't mean anything by it." "That's not an apology," Adrian said calmly. "Try again." "Jesus Christ, fine. I apologize, Miss Brooks." Elena nodded once, keeping her expression neutral. "Thank you." The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. Chen made his pitch quickly and left 20 minutes later, clearly rattled. When the conference room emptied, Elena started gathering papers. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. Adrian looked at her steadily. "Yes, I did. He was out of line. I can handle men like Chen." "I know you can, but you shouldn't have to." Adrian picked up his laptop. "That's part of my job, making sure my team is treated with respect." He walked out before Elena could respond. She stood there holding her notes, feeling something crack in her carefully constructed armor. That night, Elena's mother noticed something was different. "You're quiet tonight, honey," Maria said from the couch. She was having a good day, relatively speaking, color in her cheeks, appetite intact. Elena looked up from her laptop. "Just tired." "You're always tired. This is different." Her mother studied her with the kind of perception only parents possess. "Something happened at work?" "My boss defended me in a meeting today." "That's good, isn't it?" "I don't know." Elena closed the laptop. "I spent weeks building walls to keep him at a distance. Now he's respecting every boundary I set, and somehow that's confusing." Maria was quiet for a moment. "Is he a good man?" "I don't know that either. He's made mistakes, but he's trying to change." "People rarely change, Elena. Not really." "I know. But sometimes," Maria continued, "they grow. There's a difference." Elena didn't respond to that. Her mother reached over and squeezed her hand. "Just be careful, baby. Men with power don't give it up easily, even when they're trying." "I will." But later, lying in bed, Elena couldn't stop thinking about the way Adrian had stood up for her. Not because he wanted something from her, just because it was right. Maybe people could grow, or maybe she was being stupid. Bassin. The breaking point came during the company holiday party. Cole Technologies always threw an extravagant celebration in early December. This year it was at a midtown hotel, complete with open bar, live band, and enough corporate networking to make Elena's teeth ache. She'd planned to skip it entirely, but Adrian's executive team was expected to attend. So Elena put on the one nice dress she owned, simple black, 3 years old, bought for a friend's wedding, and showed up. The ballroom was packed with employees, clients, and investors. Elena grabbed a glass of water and found a quiet corner, planning to stay exactly 90 minutes before making an escape. Elena Brooks, Patricia from HR appeared, slightly drunk, pulling her toward a group of assistants. Come meet everyone! Elena allowed herself to be introduced, made small talk, and tried to look engaged. The other assistants were nice enough, but they all seemed to come from different worlds. Designer dresses, expensive jewelry, stories about vacation homes and country clubs. Elena nursed her water and felt painfully out of place. Then she saw Adrian across the room. He was surrounded by investors, playing his role perfectly. Charming smile, confident handshake. The billionaire CEO everyone expected, but he looked exhausted. Their eyes met across the crowd for just a second. Adrian's expression shifted into something softer. Then someone pulled his attention away, and the moment broke. Elena excused herself and headed toward the restroom. She was washing her hands when 2 women from accounting walked in, clearly drunk, clearly gossiping. Did you see Cole tonight? He's been staring at his assistant all evening. The quiet one, Elena something? I give it 3 months before he gets bored and moves on. That's his pattern. Elena froze. Poor girl probably thinks she's special, but Cole goes through women like tissues. Remember that VP from marketing and the consultant last year? He's always the same. Intense pursuit, then nothing. They continued talking, oblivious to Elena standing right there. She waited until they left, then gripped the sink and stared at her reflection. This was stupid. She was being stupid. Adrian Cole wasn't changing. He was just on his best behavior. Eventually he'd revert to type, and she'd be another casualty. Better to keep her distance. Better to remember this was just a job. Elena splashed cold water on her face, fixed her makeup, and went back to the party. Geek. She made it another hour before escaping to the hotel's outdoor terrace. The December air was cold enough to bite, but Elena welcomed it. The noise from the party faded to background hum. Out here, she could breathe. Not a fan of corporate celebrations? Elena turned to find Adrian standing in the doorway, suit jacket unbuttoned, tie loosened. Mr. Cole? I saw you leave, just wanted to make sure you're okay. He stayed by the door, maintaining distance. I'm fine, just needed air. Adrian nodded. Mind if I join you? I promise I'll stay over here. Elena should have said no, should have made an excuse and left. Instead, she said, It's a public terrace. Adrian walked to the railing, leaving 10 feet between them. They stood in silence for a moment, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. I hate these things, Adrian said finally. Always have. You hide it well. Years of practice. My father used to drag me to events like this when I was a kid. Taught me how to work a room, make small talk, pretend to care about people I'd never see again. He smiled without humor. I got very good at it. Elena didn't respond. You're wondering why I'm telling you this, Adrian continued, violating the no personal conversations boundary. Yes, because I want you to know something. He turned to look at her directly. I'm trying, Elena. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've been exactly the kind of person those women in the bathroom were talking about tonight. Elena's stomach dropped. You heard that? Hard not to. They weren't exactly quiet. Adrian's expression was difficult to read. And they weren't wrong. I have a history of treating relationships like temporary arrangements. I have used my position inappropriately, and I've hurt people because I didn't think about consequences. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve honesty. You've been waiting for me to revert to the person I was before you slapped me. I can see it in the way you watch me during meetings, like you're expecting the mask to slip. Elena couldn't deny it. I can't promise I'm a different person, Adrian said quietly. I can only promise I'm trying to be better. Some days I succeed, some days I fail. But I'm trying. Why? The question came out sharper than Elena intended. Why does it matter what I think? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Because you're the first person in years who treated me like I wasn't special. Like I was just another man who needed to learn boundaries and respect. He laughed softly. My father would have hated you. He believed people like me existed above normal rules. And you believed him. I did. For a very long time. Adrian turned back to the skyline. Then you slapped me, and something broke. Or maybe something finally started working. I'm still figuring it out. Elena felt something shift in her chest, something dangerous. I should go, she said. Elena, this conversation is crossing boundaries, Mr. Cole. The ones I set specifically to avoid this. You're right. I'm sorry. Adrian stepped back toward the door. For what it's worth, you look beautiful tonight. He walked inside before she could respond. Elena stood on the terrace for another 20 minutes, trying to sort through the confusion in her head. Then she went home and added another rule to her mental list. Stop having private conversations with Adrian Cole, because those were the most dangerous kind. The week after the party, Adrian started leaving small things on her desk. Not gifts, nothing that crossed the line, just considerations. A bottle of water on mornings when she looked particularly tired. Her favorite pen, which had run out of ink, replaced without comment. An extra space heater for her desk area when he noticed her wearing her coat inside. Elena didn't acknowledge them, didn't thank him, just accepted them as part of the new normal. But she noticed. And when Adrian worked late one Thursday evening, Elena found herself staying late too, even though her work was finished. She told herself it was to catch up on filing. Really, she just didn't want to leave him alone in the empty office. Around 9 p.m., Adrian emerged from his office looking defeated. I can't figure out this Henderson contract, he said, running a hand through his hair. The liability clauses don't make sense. Elena looked up from her desk. Want me to look? I thought you were done for the day. I'm here anyway. Adrian handed her the contract. Elena scanned it quickly, found the problematic section, and explained the issue in 3 sentences. You're brilliant, Adrian said. It came out automatic, sincere. It's just contract law. No, you're brilliant. He met her eyes. I don't tell you that enough. You make my job possible, and I don't thank you properly. Elena felt heat rise in her face. That's what you pay me for. I pay you for administrative support. You provide strategic thinking, problem solving, and daily miracles. There's a difference. Mr. Cole, Adrian. When it's just us, you can call me Adrian. That felt like crossing a line. But Elena was tired and her defenses were low, and it was just a name. Adrian, she said quietly, you should go home. Your son probably misses you. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. He's with his grandmother tonight. She takes him most weekends. That must be hard. It's practical. I work too much to be a good father. You could work less? Adrian smiled sadly. I don't know how to do that. You could learn. They stood there in the quiet office, the conversation feeling heavier than it should. Finally, Adrian said, Would you like to grab dinner? There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Nothing fancy, just food. Elena should have said no. Okay, she heard herself say. The diner was exactly what Adrian had promised. Worn booths, fluorescent lighting, laminated menus with too many options. They sat across from each other, and for the first time since Elena started working for him, the silence wasn't awkward. Tell me something, Adrian said after they'd ordered. Why did you take this job? You could work anywhere with your skills. It paid the most. That's the practical answer. What's the real one? Elena considered lying. Instead, she said, I wanted to prove I could handle it. People like me don't usually get opportunities in companies like yours. People like you? Poor. No connections, no prestigious degree. She met his eyes. You know exactly what I mean. Adrian nodded slowly. I do. And you're right. Our hiring practices are biased toward privilege. Are you going to change that? I'm going to try. He paused. Would you help me? Build a better recruitment program? Elena blinked. That's not my job. I'm making it your job with a raise and a new title, Director of Talent Development. You're offering me a promotion in a diner at 9:30 on a Thursday. Yes. Is that a problem? Elena started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation, the exhaustion, everything. Adrian started laughing too. And for the first time, Elena saw him as just a man. Flawed, trying, genuinely lonely despite all his wealth. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. They ate burgers and talked about nothing important. Adrian told her about his son, a 6-year-old named Jacob, who loved dinosaurs and hated vegetables. Elena told him about her mother, a former teacher who still corrected her grammar even while sick. It felt dangerously normal. When they left the diner, Adrian offered her a ride home. Elena surprised herself by accepting. They drove through Brooklyn in comfortable silence. When they reached her building, a shabby walk-up that looked worse next to Adrian's luxury car, he didn't comment. Thank you for dinner, Elena said. Thank you for the company. Adrian hesitated. Elena, I know this is complicated. The boundaries you set are important, and I don't want to push. But I need you to know, you've changed how I see everything. Not just work, everything. Elena's heart was pounding. I'm not asking for anything, Adrian continued quickly. I just wanted you to know. Okay, Elena whispered. She got out of the car and walked to her building without looking back. But when she reached her apartment, she stood at the window and watched his car disappear into the night, and admitted to herself, finally, that she was in serious trouble. Because despite every warning in her head, despite every reason to keep her distance, Elena Brooks was starting to care about Adrian Cole. Not the billionaire, the man. The promotion became official 2 weeks later. Elena sat in HR while Patricia processed the paperwork, still half convinced this was some elaborate joke. Director of Talent Development, 40% salary increase, her own office on the 38th floor. This is unusual, Patricia said, stamping documents with bureaucratic efficiency. Mr. Cole doesn't typically create positions without board approval. He got board approval? He didn't ask for it, just announced the position was filled. Patricia handed Elena a folder. Congratulations. You've clearly made an impression. Elena heard the question buried in that statement. She didn't answer it. That afternoon, she moved her belongings to the new office. It was small but private, with actual walls and a door that closed. Through the window, she could see a sliver of the Hudson River. Adrian appeared in the doorway as she was unpacking her single box of desk supplies. Settling in? He asked. Still processing, honestly. You earned this. The board agreed unanimously once I explained your qualifications. He leaned against the doorframe, careful not to enter her space uninvited. We have our first recruitment strategy meeting Thursday. I'd like your honest assessment of where we're failing. That's a long list. Good. I want the full list. Adrian's expression was serious. I mean it, Elena. I want real change, not performative diversity initiatives that look good in press releases. That'll make you unpopular with some executives. I'm already unpopular. Might as well be unpopular for the right reasons. After he left, Elena sat at her new desk and tried to process what was happening. 6 weeks ago, she'd slapped this man in the face. Now he'd promoted her and was actively seeking her criticism of his company. It didn't make sense, unless it did. And that was even more terrifying. The recruitment meeting started rough. Elena presented data showing that 87% of Cole Technologies executive hires came from 5 universities. That entry-level positions required experience most candidates from working-class backgrounds couldn't afford to get. That the interview process favored people who'd been coached on corporate performance. You're saying our entire system is designed to exclude people, Marcus observed. He'd joined the meetings as COO, and Elena still wasn't sure if he was ally or obstacle. I'm saying your system rewards privilege and calls it merit, Elena corrected. That's a strong accusation. It's a documented fact. Look at the data. Adrian, sitting at the head of the conference table, was watching her with something that looked like pride. What do you recommend? Elena pulled up her proposal. Blind resume reviews, skills-based assessments instead of pedigree checks. Partnerships with community colleges and technical programs. Paid internships instead of unpaid ones that only wealthy students could afford. The CFO looked ill. This will cost millions. It'll cost millions up front, Elena agreed. But you'll get better talent, lower turnover, and actual innovation instead of 12 people from Harvard who think exactly alike. She's not wrong. Marcus said slowly. "We've been hiring the same type of person for years. Maybe that's why we keep hitting the same problems." The meeting ran 2 hours over schedule. Elena left exhausted but oddly energized. Adrian caught up with her at the elevator. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "I just presented data. You challenged executives who've never been challenged. You made them uncomfortable. That's exactly what we need." He pressed the elevator button for her. "Thank you." Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. Dangerous warmth. "Just doing my job," she managed. "No, you're doing much more than that." The elevator arrived. Elena stepped inside and their eyes met as the doors closed. She was definitely in trouble. The real shift happened on a Friday afternoon in late January. Elena was reviewing candidate applications when her phone rang. The hospital. Her mother's treatment center. "Ms. Brooks, this is Dr. Reeves. Your mother's latest scans show some concerning developments. We need to discuss adjusting her treatment plan." Elena's hand tightened on the phone. "What kind of developments?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come in Monday?" "I'll be there." She hung up and stared at her computer screen without seeing it. Concerning developments. That was doctor speak for things getting worse. Elena had been so focused on work, on the strange thing developing with Adrian, that she'd let herself forget the reality waiting at home. Her mother was dying. Treatment was buying time, not curing anything, and Elena was running out of money to buy more time. She pulled up her bank account. The promotion had helped, but medical bills ate everything. She was still 3 months behind on the treatment center payments, still juggling which bills to pay first. The math never worked. It never would. Elena put her head in her hands and tried to breathe. A knock on her door made her look up. Adrian stood there, holding 2 coffee cups. "Thought you might want—" He stopped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, just tired." Adrian set the coffee down and closed the door behind him. "Elena, what happened?" "It's personal." "I know, but you look like your world just ended and I'm not leaving until you tell me why." Elena wanted to maintain her boundaries, wanted to keep this part of her life separate. Instead, she broke. "My mother's cancer is getting worse. The doctor wants to discuss adjusting treatment, which probably means more expensive options I can't afford. And I'm sitting here in my nice new office pretending everything's fine while she's dying." The words came out harsh, broken. Adrian moved to sit in the chair across from her desk. Not too close, just present. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't pay medical bills." "How much do you need?" Elena laughed bitterly. "I'm not having this conversation again. I'm not offering charity. I'm asking a question. How much?" "It doesn't matter. I can't accept money from you, Adrian. We've been through this." "What if it wasn't from me?" Adrian leaned forward. "What if the company had a medical assistance program for employees, matching funds for catastrophic healthcare costs? That doesn't exist. It could. I could create it today. Board approval isn't required for employee benefits under a certain threshold." Elena stared at him. "You'd create an entire program just to help me without making me feel like I'm taking charity?" "I'd create an entire program because it's the right thing to do. And yes, because you need it." Adrian's expression was steady. "We have 12,000 employees, Elena. I guarantee others are struggling with medical costs too. You'd just be the first to benefit. That's still just you helping me with extra steps." "Maybe. Does it matter if it helps your mother?" Elena wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her pride, but her mother was dying, and pride wouldn't save her. "How fast could you implement it?" she asked quietly. "I'll have HR draft the policy by Monday, backdated to cover your mother's existing bills." "Adrian, let me do this, please." They sat in silence for a long moment. Elena felt tears building and fought them back viciously. "Thank you," she whispered finally. "You're welcome." Adrian stood to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, you're allowed to not be fine. You don't have to perform strength every second." Then he was gone, and Elena let herself cry for the second time in 6 months. But this time, it felt different. This time, she wasn't entirely alone. Thus, the medical assistance program launched the following week to widespread employee relief. Elena wasn't the only one drowning in healthcare costs. Within days, 17 employees applied for support. Adrian approved every single application. You're going to bankrupt us, the CFO complained during an executive meeting. We're spending less on this program than we spend on executive retreats, Adrian countered. I think we'll survive. Elena watched from her seat at the table. She'd been invited to all senior leadership meetings now, and tried to ignore the way her chest tightened when Adrian defended the program. After the meeting, Marcus pulled her aside. You're good for him, he said without preamble. Elena blinked. Excuse me? Adrian, I've known him 15 years. I've never seen him care about anyone the way he cares about you. We're colleagues, that's all. Marcus smiled. Keep telling yourself that. But I've watched him build this company through ruthless ambition and calculated moves. The man who created a benefits program to help one person? That's not the Adrian I know. That's someone who's changing. People don't change. No, but they grow. If they have the right reason. He walked away before Elena could respond. She tried to dismiss the conversation, tried to focus on work, but Marcus's words stuck with her. Things came to a head during the company's annual charity gala in February. Cole Technologies always sponsored a massive fundraiser for education initiatives. This year it was at the plaza, complete with silent auctions, celebrity appearances, and enough wealth in one room to fund a small country. Elena attended as part of the leadership team, wearing a dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. Nothing fancy, she couldn't afford fancy, but nice enough not to embarrass herself. Deep navy, simple cut, borrowed heels from a coworker. She arrived early to help coordinate, expecting a typical corporate event. What she got was 3 hours of watching New York's elite pretend to care about underprivileged children while spending thousands on auction items they didn't need. Elena was getting champagne she wouldn't drink when a woman approached her. You're Elena Brooks, the woman said. She was maybe 50, dripping in diamonds, studying Elena like a curiosity. Adrian's new diversity hire. Elena set down the champagne. I'm the director of talent development. Of course, how nice that Adrian's finally developing a conscience. The woman's smile was sharp. I'm Victoria Hayes. I've known Adrian since college. Pleasure to meet you. Is it? Victoria moved closer, lowering her voice. A word of advice, dear. Adrian goes through these phases. Finds someone he thinks is special, obsesses over them, then moves on when the novelty wears off. Don't mistake temporary fascination for anything real. Elena kept her expression neutral. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm implying that girls from Brooklyn don't usually last long in Adrian's world. You're a project to him, a way to feel good about himself, but eventually he'll get bored and you'll get hurt. Good thing we're just colleagues then, Victoria laughed. Oh, darling, everyone can see the way he looks at you. I'm just trying to save you some pain. She walked away, leaving Elena standing alone with her unwanted champagne and churning thoughts. Because Victoria wasn't entirely wrong. This whole thing, the job, the promotion, the medical assistance program, could just be Adrian trying to fix his guilt, make himself feel like a better person by helping someone less fortunate. Elena had been someone's charity project before. She knew how it ended. She was standing on a terrace overlooking Central Park when Adrian found her. There you are, he said. I've been looking everywhere. Elena didn't turn around. Needed air. Adrian joined her at the railing, maintaining careful distance. You've been avoiding me all night. I've been working. Elena, what's wrong? Nothing. You're a terrible liar. Elena finally looked at him. He was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent, looking every inch the billionaire CEO. Handsome, powerful, completely out of her league. Victoria Hayes introduced herself, Elena said. Adrian's expression darkened. What did she say? That I'm your latest project, that you'll get bored once the novelty wears off. Elena turned back to the view. She's not wrong, is she? Yes, she is. Am I supposed to just believe that? You created a job for me, Adrian, promoted me after 6 weeks, started a benefits program specifically to help my mother. That's not normal. No, it's not, because you're not a normal employee to me. Exactly. I'm a project. A way for you to feel like a better person. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. You think I created that program for my ego? I created it because watching you struggle was killing me. You think I promoted you to make myself feel good? I promoted you because you're the smartest person in that company and you were wasting your talent managing my calendar. Adrian, I'm not done. He turned to face her fully. Yes, I'm trying to be a better person. Yes, you're part of why. But you're not a project, Elena. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. You're the first person I've cared about in years. Actually cared about. Not wanted, not pursued, not tried to acquire. Cared about. Elena's heart was pounding. We work together. I know. This is complicated. I know that too. I'm still angry at you for how this started, for pushing my boundaries, for thinking you could just... I know, Adrian said quietly. I'll probably spend years trying to make up for those first few weeks, but I'm asking you to see who I'm trying to become, not just who I was. They stood in the cold air, city lights glittering below them. I'm scared, Elena admitted. Of this. Of you. Of what happens when you realize I'm just a girl from Brooklyn who can't fit into your world. You're not just anything, and maybe I don't want to fit into this world either anymore. Adrian gestured back at the gala. Maybe we could build something different, together. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall into this feeling that had been building for months, but fear held her back. I need time, she said, to think, to figure out if this is real or if I'm just caught up in something that'll hurt me later. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay. Take all the time you need. Thank you. He started to leave, then turned back. Elena? For what it's worth, I've never felt like this about anyone, not even my wife, and that terrifies me too. Then he walked back inside, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts and the Manhattan skyline. The next 2 weeks were torture. Elena and Adrian maintained professional courtesy at work, but the tension between them was obvious. Other executives noticed. Office gossip reached fever pitch. Are they together or not? Elena overheard someone whisper in the break room. Does it matter? He's the CEO. He can do what he wants. Elena wanted to scream that it did matter, that she wasn't just some conquest, that this was complicated. Instead, she threw herself into work. The recruitment initiative was showing results. Applications from diverse candidates were up 40%. The interview process was shifting towards skills over pedigree, and Adrian kept his distance, exactly as she'd asked, which somehow made everything worse, because Elena was starting to realize that what she felt wasn't going away, wasn't temporary, wasn't just fascination with wealth or power. She genuinely cared about Adrian Cole, the man who brought her coffee when she looked tired, who defended her in meetings, who listened when she challenged him, who was trying, imperfectly but genuinely, to be better. Her mother noticed during one of their evening conversations. You're different lately, Maria said. She was having more bad days than good now, but tonight she was lucid. Distracted. Work's busy. This isn't work distracted. This is man distracted. Elena tried to deny it, failed. It's complicated, Mom. Love usually is. I didn't say love. Maria smiled weakly. You didn't have to. I can see it on your face. She reached for Elena's hand. Does he treat you well? He's trying to. Then give him a chance, baby. Life's too short to let fear make your decisions. Elena felt tears building. What if it doesn't work? What if he gets bored, or I can't handle his world, but what if it does work? What if you miss something real because you're too scared to try? That conversation played in Elena's head for days. What if she was letting fear control her? What if Adrian was genuine? What if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life by walking away? The decision crystallized during an emergency late-night meeting. A major security breach threatened client data. Adrian called in his entire leadership team at midnight. Everyone gathered in the conference room, exhausted and stressed, trying to contain the crisis. Elena sat across from Adrian, watching him coordinate responses, delegate tasks, manage panic. He was in his element, focused, decisive, brilliant. But she also saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried, the loneliness of being the person everyone looked to for answers. At 3 a.m., they finally contained the breach. The team dispersed, leaving Elena and Adrian alone in the empty conference room. That was close, Adrian said, rubbing his face. You handled it well. We handled it well. Your idea about the backup protocols saved us hours. They sat in the quiet office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and discarded papers. Adrian? Elena said quietly. Yeah? I've been thinking about what you said at the gala. Adrian looked up, something cautious in his expression. And? I'm still scared. This is still complicated, but Elena took a breath. But I don't want to let fear make my decisions anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to have dinner with you. Outside of work, just us. No crisis, no office, no pretending this is just professional. Adrian's face transformed. Really? Really? But we do this carefully, slowly. And if it doesn't work, then we figure it out like adults. No drama, no retaliation, no making your job impossible. Adrian stood up. Elena, I promise you, whatever happens between us personally will never affect your career. How can you promise that? Because I'm putting it in writing. I'll have legal draft a document tomorrow guaranteeing your position, your salary, your role, regardless of our relationship status. Elena started laughing. You're going to legally protect me from yourself? If that's what it takes for you to feel safe, yes. She walked around the table to stand in front of him. You're kind of ridiculous, you know that? I've been told. They stood close enough that Elena could see the silver threading through Adrian's dark hair, the lines around his eyes from too many sleepless nights, the hope and fear warring in his expression. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably. We're going to regret this. Maybe. Elena reached up and touched his face gently. Adrian froze, barely breathing. Saturday night, she said. Pick me up at 7. And Adrian, no fancy restaurants, somewhere normal people go. I can do normal. We'll see. Elena stepped back before the moment could go further. I'm going home. You should too. You look exhausted. Elena? She turned back. Thank you, Adrian said quietly, for giving me a chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promise. Elena left the building at 3:30 in the morning, walked to the subway, and rode home with her heart pounding. She'd just agreed to date her boss, her billionaire CEO boss who she'd slapped in the face 4 months ago. This was either the bravest or stupidest thing she'd ever done, possibly both. But as Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Terrifying, fragile, absolutely real hope. Saturday arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. Elena changed outfits 4 times before settling on jeans and a simple sweater. Nothing too formal, nothing that screamed she was trying too hard. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the nervous woman staring back. You look beautiful, her mother said from the doorway. Maria was having a better week thanks to the new treatment protocol the medical assistance program had funded. She still looked fragile, but the color had returned to her face. I looked terrified. That too. Maria sat on Elena's bed, moving slowly. Tell me about him. I've told you about him. You've told me about your boss. Tell me about the man you're going on a date with. Elena sat beside her mother, gathering her thoughts. He's complicated. He made a lot of mistakes when we first met, crossed boundaries he shouldn't have crossed, but he's trying to change, and he's lonely, Mom. Behind all the money and power, he's just lonely. Are you doing this because you care about him, or because you feel sorry for him? Both, maybe? I don't know. Elena ran her hands through her hair. Is that terrible? It's honest. Maria took her daughter's hand. Just promise me something. Don't lose yourself trying to save him. You've spent your whole life taking care of other people. Make sure he takes care of you too. The buzzer rang before Elena could respond. Her heart jumped into her throat. He's here. Then go. Have fun. And Elena? Maria smiled. Don't come home too early. Elena grabbed her coat and headed downstairs, nerves making her hands shake. Adrian was waiting outside his car. Not the usual black town car with a driver. A regular sedan that he was apparently driving himself. He wore jeans and a leather jacket, looking almost normal except for the watch that probably cost more than Elena's annual rent. Hi, he said, and he looked as nervous as she felt. Hi. They stood there awkwardly for a moment. You look great, Adrian said finally. You look human. It's weird. He laughed. Is that good or bad? Good. Definitely good. Adrian opened the car door for her. Elena slid in, and they pulled away from her building into Brooklyn traffic. "So where are we going?" Elena asked. "You said somewhere normal people go, so I picked the most normal place I could think of." "Which is?" "You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a bowling alley in Park Slope. Elena stared at the neon sign. "You brought me bowling." "Too normal?" Adrian looked genuinely worried. "I can take you somewhere else. I just thought—" "It's perfect," Elena interrupted, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I haven't been bowling since high school." "Neither have I. This should be embarrassing for both of us." Inside the bowling alley was exactly what Elena needed. Loud music, the crash of pins, families laughing, teenagers on dates. Nothing pretentious, nothing that reminded her of the massive gap between her world and Adrian's. They got their shoes. Adrian looked absurdly out of place in rental bowling shoes and claimed a lane. "Fair warning," Elena said as she programmed their names into the computer. "I'm extremely competitive." "So am I." "Yeah, but I'm actually good at bowling." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Want to make it interesting?" "What did you have in mind?" "If I win, you have to answer one question. Completely honestly. No deflecting." Elena considered this. "And if I win?" "Same deal. One honest answer." "You're on." They shook on it, and Elena felt electricity where their hands touched. The game started terribly for Adrian. His first ball went straight into the gutter. His second barely clipped 2 pins. "You weren't kidding," Elena said, trying not to laugh. "I'm just warming up." "Sure you are." Elena stepped up, lined up her shot, and knocked down 8 pins. The second ball took care of the spare. "Show off," Adrian muttered. By the third frame, it was obvious Elena was going to win. Adrian was improving slightly, but she was consistently scoring strikes and spares. Other bowlers were starting to watch her with appreciation. "You hustled me," Adrian said, shaking his head. "You're a ringer." "I worked at a bowling alley in high school. 3 years, every weekend." Elena retrieved her ball. "Paid for my community college textbooks. I went to Princeton. My father paid for everything, including my mistakes." "Must have been nice." "It was empty," Adrian said quietly. "Everything was handed to me. I never had to earn anything, never had to fight for what mattered." Elena looked at him, seeing something vulnerable in his expression. "You're fighting now," she said. "That counts for something." By the final frame, Elena was ahead by 60 points. She threw her last ball, knocked down 7 pins, and turned to find Adrian watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. "What?" she asked. "Just admiring the winner." "I haven't won yet. You still have your turn." Adrian stepped up, threw his ball, and actually managed to strike. "Finally!" he shouted, pumping his fist. Elena laughed at his genuine excitement. This version of Adrian, unguarded, playful, celebrating a single strike in a Brooklyn bowling alley, was dangerously appealing. When the game ended, Elena had won by 43 points. They returned their shoes and headed to the attached diner, sliding into a booth with cracked vinyl seats. "So," Adrian said after they'd ordered burgers and fries, "I lost, which means you get your question." Elena had been thinking about this all game. There were 1,000 things she wanted to know, but only one that really mattered. "Why me?" she asked. "You could have anyone. Someone from your world who understands the wealth and the pressure. Why chase someone who slapped you and made your life difficult?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, tracing patterns on the table with his finger. "Because everyone else lets me get away with things," he said finally. "My whole life, people have excused my behavior because of my name or my money. They've pretended my worst qualities were charming. You didn't do that. You called me on every single thing I did wrong. You held me accountable." "That's why you're interested? Because I was mean to you?" "Not mean, honest." Adrian looked up, meeting her eyes. "You treated me like a person who could be better instead of a lost cause or a trophy to win. And you saw things in me I didn't know were still there. The capacity to care about something beyond myself. The ability to change." Elena felt something crack open in her chest. "That's terrifying," she said. "What is?" "Being responsible for someone else's growth. What if you change because of me and then decide I'm not worth it? That's not how this works, Elena. I'm not changing for you. I'm changing because of you. Because knowing you made me want to be better. There's a difference." Their food arrived, providing a momentary distraction. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. "Can I ask my question now?" Adrian said eventually. "I didn't lose." "No, but I'm asking anyway. You can refuse to answer if you want." Elena braced herself. "Okay. Are you attracted to me, or are you attracted to the idea of fixing me?" The question hit harder than Elena expected, because she'd been asking herself the same thing for weeks. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe both? I spent so long being angry at you that when you started changing, it felt like a win, like I'd accomplished something. But then somewhere along the way, it stopped being about that and started being about—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish. "About what?" "About the way you bring me coffee when I look tired. The way you listen when I talk. Actually listen, not just wait for your turn to speak. The way you defended me against Robert Chen, the way you look at your son in the photos on your desk." Elena took a breath. "So yes, I'm attracted to you. The actual you. Not the project version or the billionaire version. The man who's trying to figure out how to be good at this." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. Elena didn't pull away. "I'm going to mess this up," he said, "probably multiple times. I have years of bad habits and learned entitlement. I'm going to do something stupid, and you're going to get mad, and we're going to fight. I know. But I'm going to try, really try, to be worthy of this." "You already are," Elena said quietly. "That's what scares me." They finished eating, and Adrian drove her home through Brooklyn. When they pulled up outside her building, neither of them moved to get out. "I had fun tonight," Elena said. "Normal fun." "Me too. Turns out I'm terrible at bowling." "You really are." Adrian turned to face her. "Can I see you again? Soon?" "How soon?" "Tomorrow?" Elena laughed. "You're supposed to play it cool. Wait a few days before calling." "I don't want to play games. I want to see you tomorrow." "I'm visiting my mother at the hospital tomorrow. Can I come with you?" That surprised her. "You want to spend our second date at a cancer treatment center?" "I want to spend time with you. Location doesn't matter." Adrian hesitated. "Unless you'd prefer I didn't. I don't want to intrude on something private." Elena thought about it. Letting Adrian into that part of her life felt enormous. But he'd been funding her mother's treatment. He'd created an entire program to help. Maybe it was time to let him fully in. "Okay," she said, "but I'm warning you, my mother will interrogate you." "I can handle interrogation." "We'll see about that." Adrian walked her to her building door. They stood in the cold February air, breath visible between them. "Thank you for tonight," Adrian said, "for giving me a chance. Thank you for showing up as a person instead of a CEO." They stood close, the moment stretching. Elena wondered if he'd try to kiss her. Part of her wanted him to. Part of her was terrified. Adrian seemed to sense her hesitation. He squeezed her hand once, then stepped back. "See you tomorrow," he said. Tomorrow. Elena went upstairs, and when she reached her window, Adrian's car was still parked outside. He was looking up at her building. When he saw her in the window, he waved. She waved back, smiling despite herself. This was real. Terrifying and complicated and real. And Elena was done running from it. The next afternoon, Adrian picked her up and they drove to the treatment center in Manhattan. "You look nervous," Elena observed. "I am nervous. Meeting parents is always nerve-wracking." She's not going to bite. "But she might hate me." "You told her about the boundary issues, right?" Elena had told her mother everything. The slapping incident, the inappropriate behavior, all of it. She knows, and she's reserving judgment until she meets you. That's not reassuring. When they entered Maria's room, she was sitting up in bed, wearing a headscarf and looking far more alert than she had in weeks. "Mom, this is Adrian. Adrian, my mother Maria." Adrian moved forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Brooks, it's an honor to meet you." Maria studied him for a long moment before taking his hand. "So you're the billionaire who's been making my daughter's life complicated." "That's one way to describe it, yes." "Sit down, both of you. Adrian, tell me why I shouldn't tell my daughter to run away from you as fast as possible." Elena winced. "Mom, it's a fair question," Adrian said, sitting in the chair beside the bed. Elena perched on the edge, watching nervously. "Honestly, Mrs. Brooks, I can't give you a good reason. I've made a lot of mistakes. I was entitled and inappropriate when Elena first came to work for me. I pushed boundaries I shouldn't have touched. She slapped me because I deserved it. Maria's eyebrows rose. You're admitting this? I'd rather be honest than try to impress you with lies. Smart man. Maria glanced at Elena. I like that he's not making excuses. He's also the one funding your treatment, Elena added. By creating a program for all employees, Adrian said quickly. Elena was very clear that she wouldn't accept charity, so I found a way to help that didn't make her compromise her principles. Maria laughed, which turned into a cough. Elena quickly handed her water. Are you in love with my daughter? Maria asked when she caught her breath. Adrian didn't hesitate. Yes. Elena's head whipped toward him. What? I'm in love with you, Adrian said, looking at her directly. Have been for weeks, probably since you slapped me, if I'm being honest. You can't just... We've been on one date. I know. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm just being honest with your mother. Maria was grinning. Oh, I definitely like him. Mom! What? He's honest. He's trying to change, and he's clearly crazy about you. What more do you want? Elena felt heat rising in her face. Can we not do this in a hospital room? Where else should we do it? I might not have much time left, baby. I want to see you happy before I go. Don't talk like that. I'm being practical. Maria turned back to Adrian. If you hurt her, I'll haunt you. I'm not kidding. I'll figure out how to come back and make your life miserable. Understood, Mrs. Brooks. I'll do everything in my power to make her happy. Good. Now both of you stop looking so serious. Tell me about this bowling date. Elena says you're terrible. Adrian relaxed, laughing. I am terrible. She destroyed me. They spent the next hour talking. Adrian answered Maria's questions patiently, asked about her teaching career, showed genuine interest in her stories. Elena watched him interact with her mother, the most important person in her life, and felt something shift completely. This wasn't a performance. Adrian wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being present, kind, human. When they left the hospital, Elena was quiet on the drive back to Brooklyn. You okay? Adrian asked. You told my mother you loved me. I did. That's insane. We barely know each other. I know your favorite coffee order, the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating, how you deflect every personal question with work topics. I know you skip lunch to save money, and you call your mother every day at noon. I know you're brilliant and stubborn and terrified of letting people help you. That's just observation. It's more than that. Adrian glanced at her. But I'm not asking you to say it back. I just wanted you to know where I stand. Elena stared out the window, her heart racing. I don't know if I love you. That's okay? But I could. Love you, I mean. That scares me. Me too. They pulled up to her building. This time, when Adrian walked her to the door, Elena didn't hesitate. She reached up, grabbed his jacket, and pulled him down to kiss her. Adrian froze for half a second, then wrapped his arms around her and kissed her back like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena rested her forehead against his. I'm still scared, she whispered. So am I. But I want to try. Actually try. Yeah? Yeah. Adrian kissed her again, softer this time. I'm going to do everything I can not to mess this up. You better. They stood in the cold, holding each other, and for the first time in her life, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could last. Bonk. The next few weeks were the happiest Elena could remember. They kept the relationship quiet at work, both of them aware of how office gossip could poison things. But outside the office, they spent every possible moment together. Adrian took her to museums on Sunday mornings before the crowds arrived. Elena taught him how to cook actual food instead of ordering from expensive restaurants. They watched movies in his home theater while his son Jacob, a whirlwind of energy and dinosaur facts, alternated between playing and demanding their attention. Meeting Jacob had been terrifying. Elena had no experience with kids, but the 6-year-old had looked at her critically and declared, "You're prettier than the last one Dad brought home." Jacob! Adrian had looked mortified. What? She is. The last one had weird hair. Elena had started laughing and couldn't stop. Jacob had grinned at her, gap-toothed and proud of himself. Now, 3 weeks later, Jacob had decided Elena was okay. and occasionally let her help with his dinosaur collection organization. "He likes you," Adrian said one evening after they'd put Jacob to bed. They were sitting in Adrian's living room, an absurdly large space that somehow felt empty despite the expensive furniture. "He tolerates me," Elena corrected. "There's a difference." "No, he likes you. He doesn't let just anyone touch his dinosaurs. I'm honored to have earned dinosaur privileges." Adrian pulled her closer on the couch. "I'm happy. I can't remember the last time I felt this way." "Me too." Elena snuggled into his warmth. "It's weird. Happiness? Being happy with someone, not feeling like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." "The shoe isn't dropping, I promise." But even as he said it, Elena felt a flicker of unease. Because shoes always dropped. Good things always ended, and she and Adrian were operating in a bubble that couldn't last forever. The outside world was going to intrude eventually. The question was when. The answer came during Cole Technologies' quarterly shareholder meeting. The event was enormous. Hundreds of investors, financial analysts, major stakeholders all gathered to review company performance. Elena attended as part of the leadership team, sitting in the audience while Adrian and the other executives presented on stage. Everything was going smoothly until the Q&A session. An investor named Richard Paulson stood up, his expression hostile. Elena recognized him from files. Old money, conservative politics, had voted against every progressive initiative Adrian had proposed. "Mr. Cole, I have concerns about recent policy changes," Paulson said, his voice carrying across the auditorium. "This medical assistance program, the revised hiring practices, the diversity initiatives, these are expensive programs with questionable ROI. Our data shows improved employee retention and satisfaction," Adrian replied calmly. "Long term, these programs save money. Or perhaps these programs exist because you're personally involved with the employee who proposed them." The room went dead silent. Elena's stomach dropped. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. Paulson," Adrian said, his voice cold. "I'm implying that Ms. Elena Brooks, your former assistant, current director of talent development, and if rumors are correct, your girlfriend, has influenced company policy for personal gain. She benefits directly from the medical assistance program, does she not?" Elena felt hundreds of eyes turn toward her. Her face burned. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Ms. Brooks' relationship to me is irrelevant. These programs were implemented based on data and employee need. Convenient data discovered by your girlfriend. I move that the board investigate potential conflicts of interest and suspend these programs pending review." Several investors nodded. Elena wanted to sink through the floor. Marcus, sitting beside Adrian on stage, leaned toward the microphone. "Mr. Paulson, are you suggesting that good policy should be rejected because of who proposed it? That seems counterproductive." "I'm suggesting that mixing personal relationships with corporate governance creates problems. This company has always prioritized shareholder value. These new initiatives prioritize feelings over profit." "These initiatives prioritize people," Adrian said, his voice sharp, "which creates long-term value. But since you've made this personal, let's address it directly." Elena's heart started racing. What was he doing? Adrian stood up, stepping away from the podium. "Yes, I'm in a relationship with Elena Brooks. Yes, she proposed many of our recent policy changes. And yes, she's brilliant at her job. Those facts aren't in conflict. Ms. Brooks earned her position through exceptional work, not through our relationship. She was promoted before we ever dated, and she's done more to improve this company in 6 months than most executives do in years." "That's not the point," Paulson started. "No, let me finish." Adrian's voice had gone cold in a way Elena hadn't heard since her first week working for him. "You want to investigate conflicts of interest? Fine. But let's also investigate why you voted against every single initiative designed to help our workforce. Let's examine your voting record on employee benefits and see who's really prioritizing profit over people." The room erupted. Some investors were nodding. Others looked angry. Elena sat frozen, wanting to disappear. "Mr. Cole," the board chairman interrupted, "perhaps we should table this discussion for closed session." "No." Adrian looked directly at Paulson. "You made this public. Let's finish it publicly. I'm not ashamed of my relationship with Elena Brooks. I'm proud of it. She makes me a better leader and this company better overall. If the board wants to investigate that, go ahead. But I won't apologize for it." He sat down, and the meeting dissolved into chaos. Elena left immediately, unable to face the stares and whispers. She made it to her office, closed the door, and tried to breathe through the panic. Her career was over. Her relationship with Adrian had just destroyed any credibility she'd built. Everyone would think she'd slept her way into her position, used her relationship for personal gain, manipulated a billionaire. And maybe they were right. A knock on her door made her look up. Marcus entered, closing it behind him. "That was quite a show," he said. "I'm resigning." "No, you're not." "Marcus, I have to. This will never go away. Every decision I make, every program I propose, everyone will question my motives." "So prove them wrong." Marcus sat across from her. "You're good at your job, Elena. The data supports every initiative you've championed. Paulson is a dinosaur who hates change. Don't let him win. This isn't about winning. This is about fear. You're scared that people will reduce you to the CEO's girlfriend instead of recognizing your actual value. I get it. But running away confirms their narrative. Staying and continuing to do excellent work? That changes the story." Elena wanted to believe him, but the humiliation was overwhelming. Another knock. Adrian entered without waiting for permission. "Out," he told Marcus. Marcus left, and Adrian closed the door. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately. "No, I'm mortified. Your shareholders think I'm using you. My colleagues think I slept my way into this job. Everything I've worked for is tainted." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." Elena stood up, pacing. "You just announced our relationship to hundreds of investors. You defended me publicly. Don't you see how that makes everything worse? Now it looks like you're protecting me because we're sleeping together, not because I'm actually good at my job." Adrian flinched. "I was defending you from an attack." "I didn't need you to defend me. I needed you to stay professional and let the data speak for itself. But you couldn't do that. You had to be the hero, the protective boyfriend. You made this about us instead of about the work." "He was attacking you personally, Elena. I wasn't going to sit there and let him—" "That's exactly what you should have done. Let the board investigate. Let the data prove itself. Instead, you made it a personal crusade, which only confirms what everyone already suspects." They stared at each other, both breathing hard. "I'm trying to protect you," Adrian said quietly. "I don't need protection. I need you to trust that I can handle things myself." "Even when people are trying to destroy you?" "Especially then. Because when you swoop in to save me, it reinforces the idea that I can't survive without you, that I'm just your girlfriend playing at having a career." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I should have handled it differently." "Yeah, you should have." "What do you want me to do now?" Elena sat down, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know. The damage is done." Adrian knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands. "We'll fix this. Together. I'll make a statement clarifying your qualifications. We'll release the data publicly, whatever it takes." "That still makes it about you fixing my problems." "Then tell me what to do." "I'm trying here, Elena." She looked at him, this powerful man on his knees in front of her, genuinely at a loss. Despite her anger, despite the humiliation, she felt something soften. "Just give me space to handle this myself. Let me prove to the board and the company that I earned this position. Don't defend me. Don't issue statements on my behalf. Let me fight my own battles. Even if I have to watch you struggle? Especially then. That's what it means to respect me." Adrian nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll back off. But Elena, if this gets worse, if they actually try to remove you, then I'll decide how to handle it, not you." He squeezed her hands once, then stood. "I'm sorry for making this harder." "I know." After he left, Elena sat alone in her office and tried to figure out how to save her career. Because one thing was certain, she wasn't running away. She'd earned this position. She'd proven her value, and she'd be damned if she let fear or gossip or a hostile shareholder take it away. The board investigation began the following Monday. Elena spent the weekend compiling every piece of data, every metric, every documented decision she'd made since becoming director of talent development. She barely slept, running on coffee and stubborn determination. Adrian called 6 times. She ignored every call, not because she was angry anymore, because she needed to do this alone, needed to prove to herself as much as anyone else that she could stand without him. On Monday morning, She walked into the conference room where the board's ethics committee waited. 5 stern-faced executives who held her career in their hands. The chairman, an older woman named Catherine Reeves, gestured to a chair. "Ms. Brooks, thank you for meeting with us." "Of course." Elena set down her portfolio, refusing to let her hands shake. "I'm sure you understand why we're here," Catherine continued. "Mr. Paulson raised concerns about conflicts of interest regarding your relationship with Mr. Cole and the programs you've championed. I understand, and I welcome the investigation." That seemed to surprise them. "You welcome it?" one of the other board members asked. "Yes, because the data will show that every initiative I've proposed has improved company performance, employee retention, and long-term value. My relationship with Mr. Cole is irrelevant to those facts." Elena opened her portfolio and began presenting. Application statistics showing increased diversity. Retention rates up 18% since the new hiring practices. Employee satisfaction scores at a 5-year high. Cost-benefit analyses proving the medical assistance program saved money by reducing sick leave and turnover. She spoke for 40 minutes without notes, fielding every question with precision. When she finished, the room was quiet. "This is impressive work, Ms. Brooks," Catherine said finally. "But the concern remains that your personal relationship creates an appearance of impropriety, regardless of actual performance." "With respect, Mrs. Reeves, that's a double standard." Elena kept her voice level. "Male executives date and marry colleagues constantly, without their credentials being questioned. The concern here isn't impropriety. It's discomfort with the fact that I came from a non-traditional background and still earned this position." "That's a serious accusation. It's an observable pattern. Mr. Paulson has voted against every diversity initiative this company has proposed. His objection isn't about ethics. It's about maintaining a system that benefits people who look like him." Catherine exchanged glances with the other board members. "We'll take this under advisement," she said. "You'll have our decision by Friday." Elena stood, shook hands with each of them, and walked out with her head high. Then she made it to the bathroom before her legs gave out. She'd just gambled her entire career on a single presentation, and she had no idea if it had worked. Well, the rest of the week was torture. Elena threw herself into work, avoiding speculation and gossip. Adrian respected her request for space, keeping their interactions purely professional in the office. But the strain was showing. She saw it in the way he looked at her during meetings, worried, wanting to help, forcing himself to stay back. In the tension in his shoulders when other executives whispered as she passed. On Thursday night, Elena's mother called. "How are you holding up, baby?" Maria asked. She sounded weak, but her mind was sharp. "I'm okay. The board meets tomorrow to decide my fate. And if they rule against you?" Elena had been trying not to think about that. "Then I start over somewhere else." "What about Adrian?" "What about him?" "You've been avoiding him all week. He called me yesterday." Elena sat up straight. "He what?" "Called to ask how I was doing, and to ask if you were okay since you won't talk to him." "He shouldn't have done that." "Why not? He cares about you. He's worried." "Because I need to handle this myself, Mom. I can't let him fix everything for me." "There's a difference between accepting help and being weak, Elena." Maria coughed, recovered. "You've spent your whole life convinced that needing people makes you vulnerable. But that man loves you. Let him." "What if I lose my job? What if everyone's right and I only got here because of him?" "Do you believe that?" "No." "Then stop letting other people's opinions matter more than your own. You earned this. You know it. I know it. Adrian knows it. Who cares what some old investors think?" Elena felt tears building. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise." "You just didn't listen." Maria's voice softened. "Call him, honey. Let him be there for you. Not to fix things, just to be there." After they hung up, Elena stared at her phone for a long time. Then she called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." "Hi. Are you okay?" "No, I'm terrified and exhausted, and I miss you." Silence. Then, "Can I come over?" "Please." 40 minutes later, Adrian was at her door. Elena opened it, and he pulled her into his arms without a word. They stood in her tiny apartment hallway, holding each other, while Elena finally let herself break down. "I'm sorry," she said into his shoulder, "for shutting you out. I just needed to prove I could do this alone. I know. And you did. But you don't have to be alone anymore. What if they fire me tomorrow? Then we figure it out, together. Adrian pulled back to look at her. But they won't fire you. Your presentation was brilliant. Marcus told me. Marcus has a big mouth. He was proud of you. We all are. Elena let Adrian lead her to the couch. They sat close, his arm around her shoulders. I called your mother, Adrian admitted. I heard. You can't do that. I was worried about you and you wouldn't answer my calls. What else was I supposed to do? Respect my boundaries and wait. I did wait. For 4 days. Then I cracked. He kissed her temple. I'm trying to give you space, Elena, but I'm not good at watching you struggle from a distance. I know, but I need you to get good at it, because this won't be the last time things get hard. Fair enough. New rule. When you need space, you have to at least text me once a day so I know you're alive. Deal. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Adrian said, regardless of what happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. You changed my life, not just because you made me a better person, but because you showed me what actually matters. And I'm grateful for that. Even if dating me cost you shareholder support, especially then. Paulson and people like him don't matter. You do. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you. She felt Adrian go still. What? I love you. I've been trying not to say it because it felt too fast and too scary, but I do. I love you. Adrian turned her face toward him and kissed her softly. I love you too. Have for weeks. I know, you told my mother, remember? Hard to forget. She threatened to haunt me. They both laughed, and some of the tension finally broke. Elena fell asleep on her couch with Adrian beside her, and for the first time in a week, she didn't have nightmares about losing everything. Nut. Friday morning arrived too soon. Elena dressed carefully in her best suit, the navy one she'd bought with her first real paycheck from Cole Technologies. She looked professional, capable, ready. Adrian picked her up, and they rode to the office in silence. He squeezed her hand once before they entered the building. You've got this, he said. I hope so. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Elena tried to work through the morning but couldn't focus. Every email felt pointless. Every task felt hollow. At 9:45, her phone rang. Catherine Reeves. Ms. Brooks, can you come to the boardroom, please? Elena's heart stopped. Now? I thought the meeting was at 10. We'd like to speak with you first. Alone. That didn't sound good. Elena walked to the boardroom on shaking legs. Catherine waited inside with 2 other board members. Please sit, Catherine said. Elena sat, gripping the arms of the chair to keep her hands steady. Miss Brooks, we've completed our investigation into the concerns raised by Mr. Paulson. Catherine paused, and Elena couldn't read her expression. We found no evidence of impropriety, conflicts of interest, or abuse of position. Elena's breath caught. Your work speaks for itself, Catherine continued. The data is compelling. Your initiatives have demonstrably improved company performance. The Ethics Committee unanimously agreed that your relationship with Mr. Cole did not influence your hiring or your promotion, both of which occurred before the relationship began. So I'm cleared? You're cleared. However, Catherine leaned forward. We do think it's important to establish clearer guidelines around relationships between executives. Not because we believe you or Mr. Cole acted inappropriately, but because the appearance of favoritism can damage morale. What kind of guidelines? Disclosure requirements. Recusal from decisions that directly impact a partner's compensation or position. Regular third-party reviews of performance evaluations. Nothing onerous, but enough to protect both parties. Elena nodded slowly. That's reasonable. We'll also be announcing at today's shareholder meeting that you've been cleared of all allegations, and Mr. Paulson has been asked to resign from the board for making accusations without evidence. You're removing him? He violated board protocols by making personal attacks rather than raising legitimate concerns through proper channels. That behavior is unacceptable. Catherine smiled slightly. You made quite an impression this week, Ms. Brooks. The board was impressed by how you handled yourself. Elena felt tears threatening. Thank you. Don't thank me. You earned this with your work. Now go tell Mr. Cole he can stop pacing outside the boardroom. He's been out there for 20 minutes. Elena left the boardroom to find Adrian exactly where Catherine had described, wearing a path in the carpet. Well? He asked immediately. I'm cleared. Paulson's being removed. They're implementing relationship guidelines, but nothing unreasonable. Adrian's face transformed. He pulled her into a hug, lifting her off her feet. I knew it. I knew they'd see reason. Put me down. You're making a scene. I don't care. But he set her down, keeping his hands on her waist. I'm proud of you. You did this yourself. I really did, didn't I? Yes. You really did. They stood in the hallway, grinning at each other like idiots, until Marcus appeared. Congratulations, Elena. Well deserved. He looked at Adrian. The shareholder meeting starts in 10 minutes. You ready? Adrian nodded. More than ready. The shareholder meeting was packed. Elena sat in the front row with the other executives, watching Adrian take the stage. He looked confident, commanding, every inch the CEO who'd built an empire. But when his eyes found hers in the audience, he smiled, just for a moment, just for her. Good morning, Adrian began. Before we discuss quarterly results, I want to address the concerns raised at our last meeting. The room went quiet. An investigation was conducted into allegations of impropriety regarding employee relationships and policy decisions. That investigation found no evidence of wrongdoing. Ms. Elena Brooks has been fully cleared of all accusations. Scattered applause. Elena kept her expression neutral. However, Adrian continued, the investigation did reveal something important. It showed that this company has been slow to recognize talent that doesn't fit traditional molds. We've relied too heavily on old networks, prestigious schools, and conventional backgrounds. In doing so, we've missed exceptional people. He clicked to a slide showing diversity statistics. Since implementing new hiring practices championed by Ms. Brooks, our application pool has increased 43%. Our retention rates are up. Our innovation metrics are up. Our employee satisfaction is at a 5-year high. These aren't feel-good initiatives, they're good business. More applause, louder now. I'm not going to apologize for making changes that improve this company, and I'm not going to apologize for the relationship that helped me see where we needed to change. Yes, I'm in a relationship with Elena Brooks. No, that doesn't undermine her exceptional work. And anyone who can't separate those two facts is welcome to divest their shares. The room erupted. Some investors were standing, applauding. Others looked furious. Adrian waited for silence. This company was built on innovation and taking risks. We're going to continue doing that. If you believe in our vision, stay. If you don't, there are plenty of other investments. He smiled. Now, let's talk about our record-breaking quarter. The meeting continued, but Elena barely heard the rest. She was too busy processing what had just happened. Adrian had publicly defended her again, but this time it didn't feel like he was trying to save her. It felt like he was standing beside her as an equal. After the meeting, investors swarmed Adrian. Elena slipped out and went back to her office. An hour later, he appeared in her doorway. So that was dramatic, he said. You told shareholders to divest if they didn't like our relationship. I told them to divest if they couldn't separate personal relationships from business performance. There's a difference. Elena shook her head, fighting a smile. You're impossible. But you love me anyway. Unfortunately, yes. Adrian closed her office door and moved closer. I have a question. Should I be worried? Maybe. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's heart stopped. Adrian, what are you... Relax. It's not what you think. He opened the box to reveal a key. It's a key to my house. I want you to move in. Elena stared at the key. That's insane. We've been dating for 2 months. Almost 3 months. And I know it's fast, but Jacob keeps asking when you're coming over. And I hate the nights you're not there. And your apartment is 40 minutes away. He paused. Also, your lease is up next month. And I happen to know you've been stressed about finding a new place you can afford. How do you know my lease is up? You mentioned it in passing 3 weeks ago. I remembered. Elena took the key, turning it over in her hands. Moving in together was huge. Too fast. Reckless. But when she pictured her life now, Adrian was in every part of it, and she didn't want to keep splitting her time between 2 places when one felt like home. What about my mother? She asked. There's a guest suite on the first floor. She can stay whenever she needs to, or permanently if she wants. Whatever works. You've really thought this through. I think about you constantly, so yes. Elena looked at him, this man who'd started as her nightmare boss and become the person she trusted most in the world. Who'd changed because she'd demanded it. Who'd given her space when she needed it and showed up when she asked. Okay, she said. Okay? I'll move in, but I'm paying rent. Elena? Non-negotiable. I'm not living there for free. We'll work out something fair, but I'm contributing. Adrian smiled. Fine. You can pay rent. An absurdly low amount that barely covers utilities, but rent. Deal. He kissed her, and Elena felt something settle into place. This was her life now. Complicated, imperfect, but undeniably hers. Thank you. 3 months later, Elena stood in her new home office. Adrian had converted one of the spare rooms without asking, just set it up with a desk and bookshelves and her favorite coffee maker, reviewing applications. The recruitment program was exceeding every projection. Cole Technologies had just been named one of the best companies to work for in New York. And Elena's team had grown to include 4 full-time staff members who shared her vision. A knock on the door frame made her look up. Jacob stood there holding a toy dinosaur. Dad says dinner's ready, he announced. He made pasta, but it's probably bad. Elena laughed. I'm sure it's fine. It's not. He burns everything. Can you fix it? I'll see what I can do. She followed Jacob downstairs to find Adrian in the kitchen, looking frustrated at a pot of overcooked noodles. I swear I followed the recipe, he said. You didn't set a timer, did you? Timers are for people who don't have faith in their cooking abilities. So yes, you need a timer. Elena kissed his cheek and started salvaging dinner. Go set the table, I've got this. While she fixed the pasta, her phone rang. The hospital. Elena's stomach dropped. I've got to take this, she told Adrian. She walked to the living room and answered. This is Elena. Ms. Brooks, this is Dr. Reeves. I wanted to let you know your mother's latest scans came back. Elena gripped the phone. And? The tumors are shrinking, significantly. The new treatment protocol is working better than we hoped. Elena sat down hard on the couch. She's going to be okay? We're cautiously optimistic. She's not in remission yet, but she's responding well. We'll continue treatment, but this is very encouraging. After hanging up, Elena just sat there, tears streaming down her face. Adrian found her like that. Elena, what happened? My mom. The treatment's working. She's getting better. Adrian pulled her into his arms, and they held each other while Elena cried with relief instead of grief. She's going to be okay, Elena kept repeating. She's actually going to be okay. I know, love. I know. Jacob appeared in the doorway, looking worried. Why is Elena crying? Happy tears, Adrian explained. Her mom is doing better. Jacob considered this, then walked over and patted Elena's arm awkwardly. That's good. Moms are important. Elena pulled him into the hug, and for a moment the three of them just held each other, this strange little family they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. Yamchis. 6 months after that, Cole Technologies held another gala. But this time, when Elena walked in wearing a dress Adrian had insisted on buying her, she'd finally compromised on letting him do things like that occasionally. The whispers weren't cruel. People congratulated her on the recruitment program's success, asked her advice on diversity initiatives, treated her like the accomplished executive she was. Victoria Hayes even approached, looking sheepish. I owe you an apology, Victoria said. I judged you based on Adrian's past without giving you a chance. That was wrong. Thank you for saying that. For what it's worth, you've been good for him. He's different now, better. He did that himself. I just gave him a reason to try. Victoria smiled. You're generous, but we both know you're the reason he changed. After she left, Adrian appeared at Elena's side with champagne. What did Victoria want? To apologize. Apparently I'm good for you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Adrian handed her the glass. I have something to tell you. Should I be worried? Marcus is retiring next year. The board wants me to name a new COO. Elena's eyes widened. You're offering me the position? No, I'm offering it to Sarah Chen from operations. She's brilliant and earned it. Adrian smiled at Elena's surprised expression. But I wanted to ask if you'd consider taking over her role as VP of Operations while keeping your recruitment initiatives. That's a massive promotion. You've earned it. The board agrees unanimously, but I wanted to make sure you're interested before making it official. Elena thought about the girl who'd walked into Adrian's office 8 months ago, desperate and angry and convinced she had to fight alone. That girl wouldn't have believed any of this was possible. Yes, Elena said. I'm interested. Good. We'll make the announcement next week. Adrian set down his glass and took her hands. I have one more question. Adrian, he pulled out a small box, and this time it wasn't a key. Before you panic, I'm not asking you to marry me right now. We've talked about this not being the right time yet, but I wanted you to have this. He opened the box to reveal a simple, beautiful ring. As a promise, that when you're ready, when the time is right, I'm going to ask. And I'm really hoping you'll say yes. Elena looked at the ring, then at Adrian, then at the life they'd built together from absolutely nothing. You're really asking me to promise to eventually marry you? I know it's weird, but nothing about us has been conventional. Elena started laughing, because he was right. Nothing about them made sense on paper. A poor girl from Brooklyn and a billionaire CEO. A relationship that started with a slap and grew into something neither of them expected. But it worked. Imperfectly, messily, beautifully. Okay, she said. Okay, you'll take the ring, or okay, you'll eventually marry me. Both, you idiot. Adrian slipped the ring onto her right hand, not her left. Not yet. And kissed her while the gala continued around them. I love you, he whispered. I love you. They danced together as the night wore on, and Elena realized something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't fighting to prove herself anymore, wasn't constantly waiting for everything to fall apart. She was just living, building a life with someone who saw her value before she wore expensive dresses or held impressive titles. Later, when they went home to Jacob and her mother, who'd moved into the guest suite and was teaching Jacob how to garden, Elena looked around at the family she'd found and felt something she'd never experienced before. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. Things were still complicated. Her mother's cancer required ongoing treatment. Work was demanding. She and Adrian still fought about boundaries and independence and his tendency to try fixing everything. But they worked through it, together. Because that slap 8 months ago hadn't just humiliated a billionaire. It had cracked open 2 people who'd spent years building walls, convinced they had to handle everything alone. And somehow, in breaking each other open, they'd found a way to heal. Elena had learned that accepting help wasn't weakness. Adrian had learned that real love meant respecting someone's independence, even when you desperately wanted to protect them. They'd both learned that change was possible, but only if you were willing to do the hard work of becoming better. As Elena climbed into bed that night, Adrian already asleep beside her, she thought about how far they'd come. From that terrible first meeting to this complicated, imperfect, absolutely real life. She'd walked into Cole Technologies expecting a job. She'd found a family instead. And that made all the struggle, all the fear, all the risk completely worth it. Because the best things in life weren't the ones that came easily. They were the ones you fought for, built carefully, and chose every single day. Elena chose this. Chose Adrian. Chose the messy, complicated, beautiful life they were building together. And she'd keep choosing it every day, for as long as he kept showing up as the man he was becoming instead of the man he used to be. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.